Hello and welcome to PTZOptics Live. Today we are going to be reviewing how to live stream a virtual graduation, an experience that many of us were part of last year in May. And I actually have some awesome case studies and examples of what schools did last year so that we can look at this together and figure out what the best way for your school or your organization to live stream a graduation event this upcoming season. I have also with me Stephen Heywood and Tess Protesto, who are going to be helping me cover this topic. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Paul. Doing great, thanks.
Hi, Stephen.
Doing good.
So, Stephen, you're going to be live streaming a graduation soon, or are you more involved with the local play right now at the school?
Right now, it's the senior play season, so a lot of the plays and stuff are finishing up for the year. So, yeah, I've been pretty busy. I've got a play on Monday, and I had one that we had to do yesterday, so keeping busy. But I think 2 weeks we have graduation here locally, and maybe a possible another graduation.
That's awesome. And Stephen was actually nice enough to share with us a quick little video. I figure, why don't we kick it off, Stephen, by showing everybody the technology you're using to set up what I would consider a mobile live streaming setup. Why don't we play that video? And Stephen, why don't you tell us what we're looking at here?
Okay. So I got 4 tripods that I'm putting the PTZOptics cameras, 220x and 230x NDI cameras on. I wanted to keep this simple, plugging in Ethernet. I've got 100-foot Ethernet runs. I also have 300 that aren't pictured here, obviously, into a PoE switch. I've set up my own switch, and I also have an X keys that's controlling vMix, and also the PTZ SuperJoy that I use in studio, and I'm using the groups within it to where I can have group 1 in my studio, group 2 on the road. And then I'm using a YOLO Live, which essentially is something that I would use for just a portable broadcast. I'm using it as a HDMI out monitor for whoever's controlling the SuperJoy. So it makes it a little easier here as I'm demonstrating. I can switch from camera to camera, and the person can focus on that rather than looking in, the vMix multi-view. I also put in my own router. I want to have my own network, so I have complete control over the network, so there's no surprises, which then outputs to that PoE switch. All self-contained, all within that box. The box is server grade. It's 4-core. I've got 16 gigs of RAM in there. I also have a power switch bay, so everything within that self-contained unit is plugged into that power strip that's in there. I also have a LiveU Solo, which is taking an SDI output from that computer. So if the venue requires that we stream, we can get a good, clean connection. Everything is Velcroed in. Now, in this box, this was the first iteration as of 2 days ago. Long story short, that box ended up blowing up on location. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then I've got a keyboard and mouse and a headphone amplifier. So whoever's controlling the cameras, I have a guy that controls the cameras on the joystick, and I'm switching in vMix. We can have our own monitor mix and listen to it. And that monitor, I have it set up so you don't have to sit at the cart. The wires are long enough that we can just lift it up, put it on a table, slide the cart underneath it. And then we have a 32-inch TV that I bring along with me on a stand that is running a multi-view. So whoever's controlling the camera can see exactly what I have on it. Now, one of the things I did pay attention to is on the back of the rack unit, Paul, I made sure that I went with right angle plugs on things that may be sensitive, and so I could close that door, things that might get in the way. So that was something that I meticulously put together, and some might say it's not portable because it's so big, but when I roll it in there and I can get it set up in 20 minutes and we get professional quality with PTZOptics cameras and that, we're golden.
Wow. That is so cool. And I'm glad we got some of that technical stuff shown right away, because I know you also have some video actually setting this up, which I'd like to see. But I wanted to share some pictures from some of our customers as well here that we have. This is a really interesting picture that I think really shows what's happening out there for graduations. Tess, I'll ask you for your reaction here, but those are the empty chairs, right?
That looks like a 2021 graduation to me.
Yeah. So each one of these chairs is 6 foot away from each other, so socially distanced. And I can't remember what school this was, but we're going to go through a bunch of different slides here that will show you guys. And Mike, are you getting my video feed so you can show it full screen? You might have to add the NDI video of that. I just wanted to mention too, Tess, so we don't forget, we do have a giveaway today. So someone is going to win a PTZOptics webcam. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. You can scan this QR code. Does that QR code work, Tess? From just
I haven't tested that one, but I can right now for you if you'd like.
I'm
but
not
I
sure
will share the link in the chat.
Okay, cool.
Just to be sure.
Someone's going to win a webcam. So Tess is going to share that link, and we've got the QR code there. So Tess, I asked you in 2020 to go out to social media and find some cool social media posts about graduation this year. Take a look at this one on this side. Can you guys see how they actually cut out pictures of the students who were graduating?
Wow. That's sad and cool at the same time.
You can see here, and Stephen, this is another mobile rig, probably similar to what you showed us there with your setup. And they have what I think is really cool. It's a dual PTZ camera mount at the top. So they use speaker stands, and then either they put one camera on the top or actually 2 there, like side by side. You see that?
I need to get me one of those. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Mike's going to show that in a minute too. You should be getting an NDI feed from me, Mike, from this laptop.
Oh, that's Ken Benedict's shot.
Is Ken Benedict share that? Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it. And we have some other ones too available in the user group. Remember the one on the football field? I wonder if you included that. Yeah, from Tom White, his photos.
Yep, we have photos from Ken Benedict, Dave Edwards, Drake Finney, and Tom White. So they've all submitted some really great things. And I asked them for some tips. I said, hey, what tips do you have for us? And one is to prepare early and have a strategy. Maybe you live stream, maybe you're just going to record it, and then edit it later and then premiere it on YouTube or Facebook. Another thing we'll talk about today is preparing your graphics and having a workflow so that you can really make things easy for you in post-production. One of the great things about post live streaming and video production is that you can do a lot of this before, if you think about it before, you can cut down on the post-production time. If possible, get a student list and discuss it with your students, whether they've opted in or out on being on camera, or at least get a waiver set up. Find a good place to set up and try to get that hardwired internet connection if possible. And if you're live streaming, don't forget to record a high-quality video backup to be posted later. Now, Morgan County High School, they did what we kind of consider a drive-through. So they set up a little stand here for a drive-through, and they did a little drive-through. And then they also, the year before, this is 2019, they used to set up in the football field. And they would set up a PTZOptics camera in the press box and then stream from there. And this is kind of a messy setup, but again, this is sort of what it looks like back there. There's 2 PTZ cameras and a joystick, and I think they were using a Wirecast. And then here we are the following year. They're also streaming still from the press box. So just a couple pictures there. This was a really cool thing they did. It took a lot of work, but what they decided to do was have like a memory lane area where they put different TVs that were on carts, and they would have PowerPoint presentations rolling through, and the students could walk down memory lane. That was 2020.
Kind of like a virtual yearbook there.
Yeah, I think they had them walk through the virtual yearbook, as you put it, Tess, and then they would have them walk up to this platform, and I think their parents would pick them up in the cars. So it kind of looked like that. So you can see, people are trying to get creative. They're trying to do things outdoors, and then of course live stream to folks who can't make it, and because we can't have big crowds. This was from, I think Kyle Gunderman submitted this one. This was a fourth grade just drive-by parade. And then this one I wanted to show as well. This was a cool example of where this is at the Brandon High School in this is in Arizona, and they have in their football field a large LED screen. And so Drake Finney was actually using an NDI output from a computer to show the pictures and the names of each student. Now, that's not an easy thing to do. You need to prepare a lot of media beforehand to do something like that. But I thought it was really ingenious. He used a PTZOptics wireless cable to wirelessly send the NDI video feed about 1,000 feet. Well, I think it was maybe about 500 feet from his production PC to the LED screen. I've also seen a lot of this, Tess. Do you remember this one?
The chairs with the posters. It reminds me of the Guess Who game. That's what that reminds me of. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Yep.
I do.
Hopefully this year, at least with the chairs 6 feet apart, they can actually get students in them. I think this would probably be my preference, the field of chairs with students able to attend. Chris is commenting in the chat that his daughter's graduation last year was not the greatest, and I really hope for your students this year that there's a better solution now that there's been more time to think.
And I'd like to see, let's get some tips from Steven in a moment here, because he's really been working hard to do some great video productions at his school. Here's something that I think is worth looking at too is, that virtual alumni or a virtual gathering on Zoom. I think that can happen as right after or during, some of these gatherings is to use Zoom. Here's a view of Drake Finney's daughter from the booth, from the live streaming booth. They, as you can see here, each student would walk right up and they would capture that on camera. They would have a lower third showing the student's name. And then they would use this, what they call a student card. And it would be a picture, their name, and then they would show that on the screen. And sometimes there is a musical performance. So, of course, you would need to capture the audio along with the video. But you can see here, this was really nice of Drake to share some of the statistics from Facebook where they were reaching 15,000 folks with 8,000 viewers in Arizona. So just as an example there. Stephen, you had some video you were going to share with us, I believe, and I think maybe now we should get into a little bit more of the tech side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to kind of go through. I made some changes since the original rig that you're going to see here. This is set up on the table. We did this last night. I'm running vMix here. We're running 4 cameras. That's going to change, and I'll explain a little bit why. You guys can see basically the layout. The table we came in, we set up. My buddy Chris was there helping me. He was controlling the cameras, but he was also controlling the mixer. And I tell you, running the mixer from the iPad, ooh, pristine. So I'm going to stop it right here. And so we had an audio issue, and this is something I want to tell everybody. When you go to a venue, even though the sound guy is going to say that he's, professional, you can't always go off of that because not everybody knows how the wiring is in the building. And unfortunately, he didn't know that at this time. So we took a powered, amplified XLR from the stage, plugged it into my audio interface, and it blew it up. Not literally, but it burned it up to where it wasn't usable. So we didn't find that out until, we were getting ready to start. So then we decided to plug it into the sound card. We burned up the sound card, and that's when it clicked like, oh, it's a powered XLR input, which they told us it would not be. So I switched it out with the PreSonus Fire Studio that I had around, which gave us superb quality. We ran it right from the board back into that. And here we have one of the cameras set up. I have two 30X out in the crowd. Again, we're just running NDI. This is the same setup that you saw earlier. It's just out in the crowd. There's no parents. This is something that they're going to do on demand. And opening is this weekend. And what I did was I wedged the two 20Xs right between the curtains. And you can see I have two Rode microphones above each of the cameras. And the reason I did that is for ambient sound. Even though they're all going to have headsets on, I wanted to get that noise, just that, so it didn't sound so hollow and radio-like. This is just a little look at the back of the machine running. This is from, you can see my buddy Chris sitting there and the guy running the projector. This is just kind of what it looked like. And then we also, I'll give you a little sampling of what the cameras actually looked like during the play and switching, and why we actually needed a camera operator to call up shots. And him and I worked back and forth. I was switching in vMix. He was running the cameras, getting them called up based on how I wanted them. And this, you know, with all the changes in lighting that they had to do, you can see, Paul, I mean, the results were tremendous with the PTZOptics cameras. We managed to wedge them to where you couldn't see them on stage. And I was teasing the kids. I said, it kind of gives it that Nickelodeon feel, right? Where they're watching a little Nickelodeon show.
It does.
The whole
great.
sitcom thing going. So this was a lot of fun to do. And it was, we had an issue the first night, like I said, with the audio. So I went back last night. This is a clip from the bad part of it. So it got better, but I saw those tips. I've been planning for this for 3 months, setting up the gear and getting everything situated so it was ready to go. I didn't wait. So if you're planning on a graduation, you really need to start now. You need to get your ducks in a row, so to speak, Paul. I mean, you can't just wait till the week before and say, hey, let's live stream this.
I agree completely. Wow. Thank you for sharing that footage, because I think we were able to now share a decent amount of, past graduations, tips, tricks, strategies, but then really see, Steven's setup. Let me ask you, Steven. So you had a camera operator and then you were doing the video cuts?
I was doing all the cuts and trying to anticipate when they were talking. And so that leads me, I said we were using 4 cameras. The next play that I'm doing Monday, I'm going to introduce this, the ePTZ. And the reason I want this and implement this with power over Ethernet is I want to use this as a dump camera. And basically what I want to do is get a wide shot of the stage, because when you're controlling 4 cameras with a controller, when people are moving so fast, you need that time to get that camera zoomed in to where you need it. So having a dump camera that's getting everybody on stage at a wide angle that you can dump to get those close-up dialogue talks, Paul, is phenomenal having that. So I'm going to put this on the motion tripod and have it just real slow, just creep, and then go down and back around, just to give it that effect. And I'm also going to do that at the graduation.
Nice. That's a great idea, to always have a camera to cut to no matter what. You know that as the producer, but as a camera operator, that's a totally second job in a lot of scenarios. Now, luckily, with PTZOptics cameras, you can actually control them with OBS, with Wirecast, with vMix, with the TriCaster, with Livestream Studio. The list kind of goes on. And because you can control the cameras inside of the video production software, a lot of people try to do everything themselves because you can do it, but it's tough. And Mike is right now trying to control all of these cameras and stream, and then also manage a Zoom session, which, so don't try to overwork yourself. Work with a team, I think is a great idea. Do we want to go to Q&A, Steven, or is there anything else we should talk about before we head off? Q&A.
I think we should do that, but I can't stress enough, you want to be prepared. And like Paul said, Paul, you hit the nail on the head. Could I have done it all myself? Probably, but it wouldn't have looked as good as it did. You need to get students, get other people, and practice it if you're working with people that you've never worked with before. I have 2 guys that I rely on that's worked with me. you need to do that. I can't stress that enough. And the reason I went to the 5th camera is because I didn't want to sacrifice one of the PTZ cameras as a dump camera like we did last night. So
I know. I was going to say
practice.
that. I was going to say that. Why don't you just use one of your PTZ cameras for a dump camera?
That's exactly what I'm going to do. And we'll have footage of that too. So we'll get to show that off.
Cool. Well, how we doing, Tess? One thing we can do is we can pull a giveaway winner, but we can also obviously answer any questions that come up.
Yeah, sure. Nicole is asking about her graduation last year. It was raining and they live streamed anyway. Any camera umbrella tips or, weatherproofing for those outdoor graduations, which I'm assuming most places are going to be looking into, most schools.
Yeah. One thing, well, actually, I can go grab an outdoor camera enclosure to show it to you guys quickly. So I'll do that. And Stephen, do you have any tips other than the outdoor enclosure?
So what we were planning to do in the event that it rains for graduation, because like Tess, you had said about the football field, that's exactly how our local school is going to do it. We're going to be out in the football field. We are setting up a tent, like a tailgating tent, that we will be sitting under. And so what we're thinking about doing is getting the tent and putting the 2 center cameras there. I want to put 2 on stage. And if we have to do it on stage and it's raining, they make these camera enclosures, like they almost look like umbrellas that you can set above it. And that's what we were planning on doing. Just enough. You're going to get a little bit of rain in there. But if you're going to set them off the stage, if it rains, you can also get little canopies that you can put on, tailgating tents. They're cheap enough, $30. If it's not going to be a permanent install, if you're going to do, a permanent or semi-permanent, I think Paul has the enclosure. He's getting the enclosure.
Like a permanent solution. And if you're lucky enough, like Tom White's photos we looked at, you have a press box or something that's already enclosed. That looks like he grabbed the DotWorks.
Yeah. So
there you go.
This is called the DotWorks D2. And you can buy these without heater blowers or anything. So it's just an enclosure for the camera. It's also vandal proof. So, a lot of schools might want to get 1 or 2 of these because if you have cameras in a gymnasium anyway that might be hit by a ball, or obviously this protects them from any rain or anything like that. So our first giveaway winner is Joseph Green. I'm going to pull someone else and Tess, we can answer a few more questions. Mark.
Bill's commenting saying, I've heard it called a wide shot and a cover shot, but this is the first time I'm hearing the term dump shot. Interesting. I like it.
It's like a panic term.
Up, Steven, like, it's a mechanic.
Well, yeah, it's a panic shot. I've called it, along with a few other broadcasting friends of mine, we've called it a dump shot because it's like dump the camera 4, hurry up and and so we just call it a dump shot. Everybody just kind of understands what that is. Like go to dump. That's what, if I'm sitting next to my guy that's switching, I'll just say, hey, go to dump, and he'll know what camera that is. So it makes it a little bit easier when we're talking. So that's just, I guess it's not everybody's terminology, but that's kind of that's how me and my friends do it that were into broadcasting.
We have a tip from the chat. We have yearbook students take building pictures to use for graduation. It's free and they learn for those pictures to have in the background of students, or like we talked about that virtual yearbook. Source the students. I think that's sort of a big one. Source the underclassmen to help you produce the graduation stream if you're looking for volunteers.
Raymond Glassman is our next possible winner. Raymond Glassman. Just going to keep pulling winners and tests, just if there's any questions. We'll obviously be happy to answer them.
Adim is asking about sales in France. You can get in touch with our partner team. I'll put the email in the chat.
I think Paul too, going NDI now, being out in the field is so much easier than messing with SDI cables and converting HDMI to SDI. Having that ability has been a game changer.
I'm glad you mentioned that because you have an all NDI setup. It's powered over Ethernet, so you don't need to worry about electricity, which I remember 4 or 5 years ago. I remember trying to run power cables, SDI cables, and control cables, and it's just a lot of weight to lug around.
Not only that, it's more points of failure, right? One cable versus 2 or 3 per camera.
Daniel Wright won. It is, Stephen. I remember talking to some friends when all the NDI stuff was coming out, and I mean, if it's 100 foot per camera of SDI cabling, it could be 10, 20 pounds.
Oh yeah. Now I just bring Ethernet cable, plug it in, set it up on a tripod, and forget it. And same with the SuperJoy. In my studio, I'm not quite there yet with power over Ethernet, but when I go out there, one cable into SuperJoy, and I'm up and running. There's nothing that I have to do, hunt for power supplies. Everything's self-contained.
Well, and I like how you use the SuperJoy with 2 different groups so that you can seamlessly move that SuperJoy from your home studio, which has multiple PTZ cameras, and then obviously your mobile studio.
Absolutely. And then on the fly, we have the web interface that I can add IPs on the fly right from my mobile device, log into the I'll log into the joystick and put it in there. So that's one thing I really like, because even when I got there, my buddy was like, hey, can I set some presets? Or is that going to mess you up at home? I'm like, nope, everything's under that cam group. You can do whatever you want. And so I bring it back. Late last night, I plug it in, and we're ready to go here for the show.
Wow. And I also really enjoyed, I don't know if you want to play that video one more time, Mike, but the way that you use the HDMI video output of the SuperJoy, because as you know, when you've got a vMix production or a Wirecast production, and they have a multi-view feature, but it's a lot of stuff moves around. They're kind of small. And with this HDMI output of the SuperJoy, you're seeing exactly what you're controlling right there in front of you.
Absolutely. That to me is the killer feature for the SuperJoy. For me personally, this was like phenomenal, having that ability. And he would look at the multi-view, but not as much as he was glued to that little screen. And like I said, that's a YOLO Live. It's meant to be a broadcast in a box. It's like a glorified Android tablet, but you can hook up any HDMI monitor to it. And I have a little Marshall that I have right in front of me here in the studio, a 7-inch. And I mean, you can see, look, it's just awesome. You can set your focus, and that was what he used it a lot for. If we went to manual focus on dialogue, he could sit it and get it in focus without relying on looking at the multi-view.
That's awesome. And the SuperJoy is also powered over Ethernet. So we've got the cameras powered over Ethernet, you got your joystick powered over Ethernet. Is that YOLO Live box powered over Ethernet too?
That's powered via USB into that power switch. Everything that's there inside that box is on that power strip that you saw in the front with the switches. So the only thing I have to plug in when I get there is the box. It's one plug, and everything in that box powers up. Router, PoE switch, audio interface, the computer, the YOLO, the live view, the router, the monitor, everything is all powered right under that.
Cool. But I wanted to mention as well that Daniel Wright is our winner. So Daniel's going to get one of the PTZOptics webcams. I love these little webcams. They have such good quality video for a simple USB 2.0 webcam. So Daniel, we'll send you one of these. And Stephen, is there anything else you want to tell us about your production? It seems like we covered all the questions.
We do have one more question if you'd like to.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Tess.
Oh, go ahead, Tess.
Okay, so Ed is streaming his graduation this year as well as last year. He's thanking you guys for the presentation. So awesome. My question is for a small JCC in my town who purchased PTZOptics for their services. The camera is NDI, which works well, but I have no video on a MacBook Pro from wireless. I'm researching a Ubiquiti AP for a solution MDNS. Here's my question. Is there a scenario that would allow a laptop to stream Zoom wirelessly while receiving an NDI stream for video?
That is a really good question.
Long one.
So the good news is that PTZOptics cameras, the version of NDI that we support is called HX, NDI High Efficiency. And HX video does work over Wi-Fi. It definitely can be viewed over Wi-Fi, but you're going down the right path of looking into the higher end access points. And we have Ubiquiti wireless access points here. And in fact, on our knowledge base at help.ptzoptics.com, there is actually a knowledge base article from our lead engineer about how to set up Ubiquiti networking for NDI. So that you're on the right path already. NDI and NDI HX should work on a Mac. That's not a problem. I'm guessing your current Wi-Fi router setup is not able to support, a good enough connection, or maybe not even working at all with NDI. And that is probably because you need to change some settings on your wireless router. Take a look at our knowledge base, especially if you're using Ubiquiti, because our lead engineer, Matthew Davis, literally that's what we use. And he has a very detailed article about how to make it work.
Honestly, Paul, as things move forward, since I've been using a separate router to do what I'm doing on location, I'm thinking about putting a separate router in the studio and just running all NDI sources off that network and then plug it into my main network. So that way I can control the traffic going to and from and get the results that I'm getting out in the field.
That is a really good idea, Stephen. And that's another thing that I would honestly, it gets recommended by New Tech and by NDI all the time. They say, run a separate network and see if it works, because there might be something with your existing network that might not be set up properly.
That's what I'm doing at the school for the broadcasting class. I set up its own network within the school's network, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, that is definitely the way to go. If whenever possible. I understand that sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes if you're in a church, you've got one network and you want to make it all work. And I get that. So yes, it's definitely a networking question. Yes, you can definitely do it. If you're using a PTZOptics NDI camera, our support team will be there to call, and they know most of the articles on our knowledge base. So if you're referencing an article on our knowledge base, they'll walk you through it. So you should be able to get this done. It's definitely possible.
That covers it from my end, Paul.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. Stephen, thank you for recording all that great footage and sharing it with us today.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
Tess, great job. Thank you for being here today. You did a great job answering all the Q&A. We'll be back next. Well, let me say this. We'll be back the first Thursday of May. Wait, of June.
Of June.
Of June. The first Thursday of June.
New time for us the first Thursday of the month at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Thank you, Tess. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone who joined. Bye, everybody.
Bye, thanks.